In my soul, marijuana in my heart.
We're
We
grinding.
are semi-professionals. Don't try this at home.
Man,
Yeah.
have you ever listened to the Rogan Experience before though?
You live a living life. I'm only.
Here's the thing: is like I think we've got him beat. Like he just sits there and he like talks shit with like crappy comedians, and like we've got him totally beat.
And he asks questions to scientists that like everybody already knows the answers to. So
yeah, and he's like,
we got way better guests.
And shoot archery.
Like, let's talk about our awesome guests that we have today. Gary, why don't you introduce our special guest?
Well, first, we have to introduce ourselves because I know most of us are having an identity crisis here. My name is Gary Stein. I'm your political director here at Suncoast Normal and the Master of Public Health in our Masters of Cannabis trio. Carlos, cue the applause.
Hey, when you didn't hear it?
Oh, there you go. And right above me, we have our executive director coming to us from above the Beltway, where he hits him below the Beltway. Our executive director and board member of Normal in DC, Christopher Cano.
Woo!
I only sound somewhat discombobulated today. And right above me and a little bit to the right is our deputy director and our master of business administration, Carlos Angel Ermida.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody settle down. We got a show to do.
Yeah. And speaking of MBA, we have an MBA extraordinaire to Carlos's right today. Coming to us newly in Tampa now is Juliana Whitney. Juliana, give us a little brief introduction to yourself, and then we'll get into today's topic.
Okay, great. I'm Juliana Whitney. I've been in the cannabis industry for almost 10 years now. Started in Vegas last year, moved to Florida. Super excited about that. I am the CEO and I'm a cannabis business strategist with Cann Strategy. And we do cannabis business consulting across the country for competitive licensing. We help investor groups win those licenses. And then we also help to launch those companies, set up entire operations, get them started, and then help them, get off the ground in whatever market, whether they've done cannabis business before or not. We can help them with that. Also, co-founder of Leaf Sheets. Leaf Sheets is kind of like people say LegalZoom to cannabis. I don't love doing those kinds of comparisons, but it has all the standard operating procedures and directions that you would need if you can't afford a consultant. So for those entrepreneurs that are trying to go at it on their own to get into the industry.
It is really difficult in the state of Florida for entrepreneurs to actually get into the industry, mainly because our legislators set it up so you have to already be a millionaire in order to become a millionaire, essentially.
That's some old bullshit.
Yeah, some states are like that, and some states were like, we'll give you a go. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. But yeah, Florida is definitely one of the more restrictive ones.
Well, one of the reasons I sought you out today is because you were also heavily involved in Nevada's Q2, which switched them over from a medical program to a adult use program.
Yeah.
And we are at that point here in Florida. We have an amendment coming up, Amendment 3, which has a lot of debate going on both sides. And everybody's concerned about how are things going to change here in the state of Florida? What things are going to do we expect to happen? And I'd like to know exactly, along with all the other business fraud that came along with it in the state of Nevada, what we should expect, and what should we look for in an amendment to make certain it's the proper amendment? Because we have one right now that a lot of people are not in favor of, and a lot of people are in favor of. But here in the state of Florida, you have to have 60% of the vote, which is a large, high hill to climb.
Yeah, I thought it was more. I thought you needed like 70 or something. Now it's 60.
They tried that. They tried to jump it up to 66 this year.
Yeah,
and they're probably going to try next year. And I think that's a interesting corner that they've backed us into as voters and as activists. Is like, okay, if we don't take this shot this year at ending prohibition, with the drawbacks that come with the amendment, will we ever get an amendment in future years if the threshold is 66%? So that's an interesting dilemma for the voters that they're in right now, because there may be just a small snapshot in time, this window this November, to end prohibition in Florida. But the trade-off is that some of the large companies get to corner the adult use market for a couple of years. And that's something that doesn't sit well with a lot of people. But I continue to educate people on this. Florida has some of the harshest possession laws in the country. When it comes to cannabis prohibition, you can get a felony in Florida for any amount of concentrate. And 20 grams or more, which isn't even an ounce, will get you a felony. And a felony cannabis possession charge is punishable up to 5 years in jail in Florida.
That's wild.
So ending those arrests, I think, even, I can't sit here and for all these years I've been fighting to free people, and then we have an opportunity to free people and we say, oh, I'm going to leave those people in cages because I don't like the corporate structure.
Right. That's a really good point, actually.
Well, then okay, so I've been struggling with this too.
Yeah.
But who was that attorney that we had on? I keep on forgetting his name.
John Bash.
You guys know exactly who I'm talking about. So that attorney that we had on brought up an interesting point. We, at many times in legalization, we have given too much in order to get a little bit. So, I was sitting right in there in United for Care, volunteering for United for Care and going through their orientation with you, Canno.
Yeah.
That was like fucking 10 years ago.
2015, man. Yeah.
They were saying don't wear weed leaves. Don't, some people were telling me not to laugh because I got a stoner laugh. They were really concerned about the branding of medical marijuana, and rightfully so. And that led us to open this chapter. We wanted to open up a local chapter of Normal because we wanted the typical cannabis consumer to be represented in the medical marijuana movement. And it set us back. We're not here running. We don't have dispensaries everywhere. We're still we have medical marijuana here, but we don't have an open cannabis business. Yep. People can't grow marijuana at home in the state of Florida, or cannabis, excuse me, Gary. And and yet we're here debating on whether or not we should support Amendment 3. And I'm just wondering, are we giving too much on this amendment? Should we deal with True Leaf and Cure Leaf becoming the richest goddamn cannabis monopolies in the world, in order to allow, to stop arrest for a couple of years?
Having the industry move forward, I do support it from the standpoint of, is it basically on par with what some other states have done? It's very similar. From the standpoint of, will it let more people into the business? That's definitely a hard no, which is not surprising for Florida at all. It is one of to me, the most interestingly structured medical programs in terms of the way that the business licensing has gone. But for Florida as a whole, only like 4 states have ever gotten over 60% approval. So that would be a feat. That would be impressive. I would love that. But also, I would hope that business-wise, with just employment, that it's good for people. I would think that just the culture of things, in states that I've seen before that go from medical to adult use, I don't know, things become kind of just happier, I guess, almost like people take a sigh of relief. And I know a lot of opponents to cannabis generally think, all chaos is about to break loose. And that's just not the case. I find it an interesting argument, especially because of, it's like, if people have been getting this illegally, they will continue to do that. And are you saying that you would prefer that to happen than for this all to be occurring in a licensed, safer kind of environment? Yeah, I am for the legalization of adult use, but now you have me questioning it in terms of my like.
Well, it's a tricky subject. Let's get me
Yeah,
back in the frame.
I think
It's a tricky subject,
Yep.
and it's really hard for me to support Amendment 3. I have to be honest with you. Part of the reason why I started this company, Chillum, is because I want to run a marijuana dispensary, and I talk about it every week on the show, I guess. But it on the other hand, I don't vote to for my gain. I don't vote specifically for myself, and I think that's the problem. I think a lot of Americans really do vote to support themselves rather than Americans.
yeah,
So I think really the selfless thing is to understand maybe I'm not going to get a dispensary in the next 3-4 years. Maybe it'd be better just so to end marijuana arrests.
right.
I mean, let's just discuss a very brief history of Florida. We started out with a CBD program that began in 2014. They started out by thinking they were going to do a lottery to give out those locations, and instead they changed and had a botched application process, which gave out approximately 7 licenses. And then after it went through the administrative law judge, they had eventually ended up giving 22 licenses in 2015 for CBD only licenses. And those are the only licenses that have been given out in the state of Florida. And here we are 9 years later, and they're still promising us the next batch of licenses to come out, but they haven't even scored the most recent applications, which came out almost a year and a half ago.
And they
Now,
were submitted what, April of 2023, right, Gary?
yeah, exactly. And they
So
promised us, believe it or not, one minority license because they felt that is social equity. That is not social equity. That is tokenism.
Yeah,
But that's another topic for another day. We
And-
don't have a
But
minority
that wound
license.
up being the whole reason why we don't give out licenses, right?
yeah, that's
Well,
the excuse they use. Oh, we got to do the litigation round. It was originally what? It was Joe Redner's lawsuit, and then they passed it off on the Pickford lawsuit, and then now it's just the DeSantis administration has kicked the can down the road, and I think that's the thing that has pissed me off the most. That I think the general public is not directing their anger in the proper direction. Yes, a lot of anger is put onto the industry. And everyone knows me. I'm no shill for the industry under any circumstances. What I'm here for is accountability. And it's the DeSantis administration that needs to be held accountable for the botch rollout, for the bullshit talking points of every single year. There are going to be edibles in the Halloween candy, and every single year there's no hearings to prevent medical marijuana patients from losing their jobs. We still have people. We had a lady who's a school teacher and a bus. There was one who was a bus driver that emailed us the other day, and like even using it legally as a school bus driver, they told her, basically give up your medical marijuana card or give up your career. And it's not like we're some strong union state where there's a teachers union coming to save her because DeSantis gutted them too. So I really want people to put the anger where it needs to be, and that's on Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida Republican Party leaders that are currently elected in the state legislature. Like, cannabis should be a nonpartisan issue, but the Republican Party of Florida at their convention last week actually adopted a no on 3 stance. What that means very clearly is they want their backers like Geo Group and Core Civic, the 2 largest private prison companies in the country, to continue to donate to them in large numbers. And you can see the donations from True Leave and Cure Leave. They pale in comparison. They're fucking crumbs compared to what these private prisons are putting in the pocket of the GOP in Florida to keep arresting people and throwing people in cages. So when people are angry at private corporations, that's fair. But be angry at them for the things they do as corporations. They're not locking people in cages. And that's the choice in front of us, is do we let these corporations make this money and stop locking people in cages? And here's the other thing. How can we ever make expungements widespread if we don't first legalize the crime that people are in jail in the first place for, or you got the record for? So when people tell me I'm voting no on 3 for this, and I'm voting no on 3 for this reason, and THCs are flower already made weed legal, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, it's so misinformed. And then, no, you're misinformed. I'm misinformed. I'm sitting on the goddamn National Board of Normal, and we have a poster. I live down the street from Congress. I can tell you that they are working to close all those loopholes that folks are currently operating in. And I don't say loophole because I feel some type of way. We know what hemp-derived cannabinoids always was. The reason that they thrived is in prohibition states is because people want weed. They want good quality weed. And if you can't get it, you go to get the next best thing. Hey, you got hemp flower that gets me high? Fuck it, let me get that, because I don't want to be on a government registry, and I don't want people sweating my balls about a doctor's recommendation, and I don't have $300 out of pocket to dish out every year for a doctor's recommendation, and another $75 to the state, and 10% in weed taxes. Working class people will go to the black market, like you said, Juliana, and I think that's the takeaway from all this. It's like there's a lot of emotions, but the thing that drives me crazy the most is the injustice behind it all. And it's like, fuck, if I got to trade off rich people getting rich who are going to get rich anyways for a little bit of justice. I mean, yeah, Ben Franklin might look down on me, but fuck, what else do we got? What's the alternative? Keep the status quo?
With all due respect to the man that I'm going to mention in just a moment, every time I hear them say, we don't need to worry about minority license. We already have cookies, and Berner is a minority, right? No, he was born in East LA. His father was born in Mexico. That does not make him necessarily a minority. He was also a millionaire before he even got into this business. And I'm sorry, some of the things he's doing right now are not making me very happy either. I'm sure that Juliana knows some of the practices that are going on right now in cookies that are somewhat shady.
Ooh, can we talk about that?
Already here in Florida.
Juliana, I found recently that Cookies guy Berner was getting into bed with BlackRock and Vanguard as investors, and they are the ones who are the main hedge funds behind the private prison industry. So, like, to be a marijuana company getting private prison industry investors, that and then taking minority licenses on top of it, that is some Uncle Tom hypocritical, just horrible shit.
And I'm pretty sure the Cookies brand, I mean, it's a heavily licensed brand. I recently heard that the Cookies company, the parent company, has decided to buy up all of the Cookies brands in Florida. So I don't think that license was actually ever given to Berner. I think Berner just gets a check from the guy that owns that actual license.
Yeah, they widely just license their company, and they have so many lawsuits connected to that I was like,
you're from Las Vegas, right? Aren't there there's 4 Cookies in Las Vegas, and they're all owned by different people?
All of them, yeah. Like a couple of them used to be different stores. One of them was Essence. One of them was like Apothecary Shop or something, and they just start licensing them. But because of that, they don't have very respected products, because every state that they expand into, they have a product that's nowhere near whatever people think it is in California. And so that brand just keeps becoming less valuable in my eyes because of the way they've gone about trying to grow this company. And it's just goofy. It's so goofy.
I've seen similar criticism of Wiz Khalifa and Khalifa Kush because, of course, he licensed it to True Leaf, and the Khalifa Kush from Cali is not the Khalifa Kush you get in Florida.
No.
Yeah.
Now, if I could, let's see if we can compare Q2 to Amendment 3 and see what the pros and cons and the differences are. Because here we have in Amendment 3, we have a situation where all the licenses will go automatically to all the multi-state operators that are currently working, and there will be no new licenses given out to minorities or small parties or things of that sort. There's no home grow, but then again, in the state of Florida, you can only have a one subject bill. So if you throw in home grow, it automatically gets canceled out. But what did Q2 have that we don't have that made it work?
Yeah, did y'all have possession limits?
We had possession limits.
What were they?
Purchase limits.
Oh, okay. Purchase limit.
Yeah. So we had a 1 ounce purchase limit, and then I think it went to 2, something like that. And then I believe we have home grow still. It's a little wonky in terms of how far you have to be from a dispensary in order to be able to home grow, but it's there. But in the one way we are extraordinarily similar to Florida is, and no one really talks about how much Nevada is this way, which is interesting to me, but we only gave out, I say we, I'm like I own this market. Nevada gave out 60 something dispensary licenses in the very first round, or maybe it was like 45 of them, I think, were in the Las Vegas area. They had another round of dispensary licensing then in 2018, in which only if you already had a dispensary license, cultivation or production, could you apply. So they opened it only to cultivation production licensees. That was the only way you could apply. The dispensary licensees were obviously an advantage because I already had the dispensary SOPs for these clients. They've done that line of business before, but that was as open as that got. It has not opened since. They got sued for corruption at that point. It took like 2 years for those stores to even open. Some of them still haven't. And Nevada did not have a social equity program at all. They had a, like, if you have women or minorities on your board, like me, or on the team, there's no specific points you'll get. Maybe there will be a preference. And then they did social consumption lounges. And in that, they tried to do a social equity piece with half of the licenses going to existing dispensaries and then half of them going to independent owners and half of those going to social equity qualified. That's as open as it's gotten. But Nevada is similarly entirely closed off, benefited a lot from the fact that a lot of MSOs actually did not apply in Nevada to start. And so they had to acquire companies, which means a lot of the independent owners there got to live out the dream of being acquired by a large company, especially the ones earlier on had big come ups. But it's similar in that it's very limited. And then we don't, obviously have public consumption, stuff like that, which is why we have to come up with these lounges, which is an interesting structure to try to form also. But you technically can still get in trouble for actually consuming cannabis, which is weird because we have in Vegas massive tourism.
Yeah.
They can't consume in, the casinos. They
They
can't
smoke
consume
at
in
Caesar's
public.
Palace.
So it's like,
But
where
you can buy weed in front of Caesar's Palace. I can tell you this. You go out in front of Caesar's Palace, you can get all kind of weed. Just
go read.
all over. Yeah, it's all over.
If a guy hands you a mixtape, be like, I don't want this. I want some bud. And then he'll hand you some bud instead.
You're like, got it. Yeah, that is super easy. But yeah, I can't say that Nevada is wildly more progressive in any way than Florida, how we handled the turnover. They were a little better in terms of the initial licenses because Florida, that not just you already have to have money, but to survive in this market, you have to have mad money because of how many locations people can have. Every other state limits that. Nevada, you can't have more than 10% of the share of licenses in any given jurisdiction. It's like, at least there's a cap on that. Here, it's like, you better hope you can open as many stores as possible, or it's not worth it. There's companies that have left because of that, and I'll see them and they're like, oh my gosh, we could not make it in Florida. And they're large companies. And there's one right now that I know is about to leave. They're selling everything. They're out of here. And they're like a long-standing MSO. So in that way, Florida's a whole different creature to deal with.
I find it interesting that Planet 13 just exploded on the scene in Nevada. And here, they bought a license which was bought several times before that.
Yeah,
and they're still sitting on it.
Oh man, that's actually not true. They
Larry hasn't been talking to me lately, so
yeah. So this is what I'll tell you. So my boyfriend actually, I moved here because he's an executive for Planet 13, and we were moved here for him to start Planet 13 Florida. And I can definitely say this because it's public information now, but as of May 10th, their VitaCann acquisition closed, and they actually sold last week. It got finalized. They sold that initial license that they bought for like 52 million or 51 million or whatever it was, and their VitaCann acquisition was finalized. So that's kind of how they've handled it, so that they don't have to start from zero and trying to open tens and tens of stores and catch up. So they're starting at like 26 with what VitaCann has, and then can grow from there. But
so they had another license, and instead of starting on that, they bought out VitaCann, which was the last Florida homegrown. So we have no more original Florida homegrown. Everything's an MSO now. and then they're selling the other license they were sitting on.
They sold it. Yeah, they sold it.
They sold it. Wow. What,
So-
like you said, like look at that. You literally got to have hundreds of millions of dollars of capital to be able to do something like that, to buy a $50-some million license, not do anything with it, and then buy a whole nother company with 26 locations and then sell the $50-some million license.
Can you disclose? Do you know how much it was sold for?
Yeah, I think it because they're public. I believe it's public record. So they sold their license for somewhere around 9 million. Their one that they'd purchased.
9
with 26 locations.
No. The paper one they sold for 9.
Okay.
They bought Vitacan. I think they bought Vitacan for 48 point something, I believe, and a significant portion of that is stock. And then the rest of it was cash. But yeah, it was that's public, so I can disclose that.
Here's something interesting about that. Like, okay, you bought it for 50-some million, you sold it for 9. You can, when you do your taxes, you get to take that off as a loss. But the question is a cannabis license like, is that legal under the IRS code, right? Because we have all these issues with IRS code 280E in cannabis business, but selling a cannabis license for a loss, are they going to be able to claim that on their taxes or not next year?
Yeah, I'm no accountant, and I'm not sure how they structured that. I feel like some companies I've seen are really good at their corporate structure and working around things, and some are not. So it could kind of go either way.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that concerns me about the cannabis oligopoly in Florida is, as an investor, you might think that some of these cannabis MSOs from Florida are a good bet, and they could be cooking the books to you. And then, here you go losing your investment for pennies on the dollar. And again, we're all about the consumer. And so, not just people smoking the weed, but if you're buying weed stock, you deserve to, have full faith and truth in those companies. And that's some shady shit.
Yeah.
I can't wait till Vitacan turns into Planet 13.
It's been
I think that'll be better.
Well, Planet 13 does have a brand. Everybody I know who goes to Vegas, Planet 13 drops out of their mouth at some point.
Vitacan never sponsored us, right? So I never enjoyed.
We've never been sponsored by any MSO for any reason other than business conferences and them sponsoring like the lunch or something, and we were doing that for public education. We don't take MSO dollars to operate our chapter.
Well, that's in part because Mr. Loop and Mr. Asic are both assholes, but we're not going to get into that right now.
No, again, Gary, this is a good time to make a pitch. Carlos, you can run a thing. We are a 501c4 membership-based organization. Our members drive our agenda, and from what our members have said, they want things like being able to smoke their weed legally and keep their jobs, keep their children, keep their medical plans and not get kicked out of a nursing home or not get kicked off pain management or not get kicked off an organ transplant list. And people want to be able to grow their own bud. These are the reasons why our chapter operates even in a post-legalization world, is because consumers are still not the focus. It's like, okay, we legalized it, we created an industry. There are still people in jail. There are still people with records. And there are still people who are experiencing hardship, all because they use a natural God-given plant. And whether you're an atheist or you're theist, it's natural, comes from the earth, and whether we have a creator or not, it's not hurting anybody. People have used this medicinally for so long, and what drives me crazy is we have a disconnect culturally in this state. I was talking to someone this week about it. The Latino community in Florida, especially those who are, among the Spanish language media consuming, have a stigma around marijuana of all of the Reagan era propaganda. Being a stoner makes you lazy, makes you less productive. It's bad for the kids. It fries your brains. Oh, you're a marijuano. You're not a good guy. And the fact is that all those things have been dispelled by studies in adult use states. Juliana, you've been at this. You've seen it with teen rates go down of cannabis use. Traffic fatalities go down. I know the alcohol companies don't like it, but also less people are getting drunk because you can get stoned legally at home instead of getting smashed at the bar.
And it's interesting too, what I think people don't realize is it's like if it's illegal as far as kids go, because I've been working in New York for like the past 2 years, and they are passionate about being very concerned about the children. But it's like if it's illegal, it seems a lot cooler. It seems like, oh, what is this? What is this? If you just let parents and like lame adults they know consume cannabis, it's not as cool at all. And so they're not like, what is this substance? I want to see what it's not as like, they're not as curious. I feel like that's part of why just like teen consumption of it even goes down. It's just less cool, honestly.
I'm becoming like this weird old man because I've seen what you're talking about happening, and it's just so strange to me now. Where it's like 20-year-olds, instead of smoking cigarettes and smoking blunts, like they vape blueberry yum yum, and and then they're like, no, Dad, don't make me feel weird because I want to take pharmaceutical medications. God, the doctor prescribed me Ritalin, and I'm gonna take that, and I'm not gonna be ashamed about it.
Yes, I'm going to take my Ritalin and Klonopin, and you can stick to your weed, old man.
What is going on?
They're like, you keep that stuff.
Because they got the good shit. That's why. Like these pharmaceutical drugs are just out of hand. I mean, I remember after knee surgery taking half of Vicodin and being ridiculously sick from having that big of a dose, But it's the prescription pill crisis in this country.
Or like the prescription pill crisis is horrible, but the children nowadays too, they're like, I'm allergic to weed.
Yeah. Like no, you're not.
I can't smoke weed. When I smoke weed, I break out in hives.
They're like, no.
Well, first off, Juliana, I sincerely give you my sympathy for working in New York for the last 2 years on the rollout for adult use over there, because they are definitely not a role model.
Oh my goodness gracious! And I've benefited a lot. I'm always on this like middle ground. I'm like, I have the social justice heart, and then I benefit a lot from corporate cannabis, and that's just my reality. So I had clients that were successful in the regular adult use licensing, and we got them licenses. They've been installed too, but nowhere near to the extent of the social equity program. New York, I knew something would go wildly sideways because they had this whole like, if you can do it in New York, you can do it anywhere. New York's the best. We're going to crush this. It's going to be great. Attitude in 2021. And that is gone. That is so gone. And the truth is their original bill was actually written to be pretty good. I was like, oh, this is written really well. And then they executed something entirely different. And
they did that here in Florida with the medical. I mean, everybody thought medical, oh, great. We're going to have medical. We have access to the whole plant. We're going to buy clones in the dispensaries.
Yeah. All that. Yeah, they execute it differently. Yeah, New York, I would say for any justice involved effort, don't do what they did. And I almost have said that with every new state, whatever they did, don't do that. I thought that within Illinois. And then once New York happened, I was like, you know what though? Because Illinois was like all these MSOs, you need to find someone who's a veteran and who has all the social equity check boxes. And these large companies find those people, they create their contracts, they make it all work out for them. I was like, that's ridiculous. And now I'm like, you know what though? Those people got buyouts. They at least made money on it. They made money. People in New York, they were already non-resourced people and have been drained like even further for years. So yes, what New York did with their social, like no one do that. Don't.
And like how could the small mom and pops compete with the black market with the taxing and the fees? The weed man is not paying those fees. He's not taking that hit to his overhead.
It seems like in New York, all you have to do is start up an illegal dispensary and just keep on going until they catch you. Yeah. And when they catch you, you close down and you keep your cash.
Yeah. And they're finally closing them down, but they weren't for a very long time. They were kind of like, yeah, sure, this is fine. Like,
is it true you could go to the park and there are people like pretty much setting up their own little pop-up brands in the park in New York?
Yeah, they're all over. Like I swear I've seen ones in like those, those plastic event tables with the fold out legs and then they'll set up like on the sidewalk. It's everywhere. Now they're finally cracking down because so many of the licensed operators were like, this needs to stop. We cannot survive. Yeah. So it's New York really, I'm like, you guys really did something interesting here because coming from Vegas, Vegas is a globally known city. And we always had that in mind in growing that market. We have to deal with gaming. They rule the world of Nevada. So it's like any step we take gaming has to be like, maybe we don't love it, but we're not going to squash you, basically. New York has a global visibility also, and they have just made complete fools of, of themselves. It was like no one had that in mind this whole time. Like, whoa, you guys really usually try to come off very sophisticated, savvy people, and I've never seen something go so wrong and harm so many people just trying to make a dream come true. So Florida, at least don't ever do that. Should the businesses open up, just don't do that.
Well, Juliana, this whole thing about uh, licensed businesses versus the black market, this
Yeah.
also is at the core of many people's hold up for Amendment 3. There are a lot of people in the black market who, supported medical marijuana, who thought, yeah, people need access, people need access to this. But if it's going to go corporate, then every American should have the right to get into it. And so there's this a total other group of people who told me they're voting no for that reason. They're business owners, and this is not good for their business. It's good for someone else's business. And last week, some interesting developments out of Minnesota. A lawsuit in Minnesota is saying that the state constitution has a provision in it that allows the unlicensed sale of cannabis. Because in Minnesota, there is a 120-year-old provision in their constitution that says any person may sell or peddle the products of the farm or garden occupied and cultivated by him without obtaining a license therefor. Very American, very freedom-oriented. You shouldn't have to have a license to grow your own agricultural commodities.
Yeah.
And so this, at the core of it, I think, that I'm interested to see how that pans out, because for them, that's everyone. Home grow is an American right under that, but that's their state constitution. Florida is where woke goes to die, according to our governor. So as far as social equity goes, yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah. Minnesota is interesting. Even how their stuff moved forward was interesting because it was kind of like, haha, gotcha. Like they wrote it in there. No one paid attention. And I was like, okay, cool. Minnesota's a go now. So it's a vibe of its own, that state. I'm interested to see how that plays, how what you just mentioned plays out, but how the state, its market generally plays out.
Do you think it's possible that if we work with the legislature, that we can get the rollout of Amendment 3 to actually look like a legitimately good program, where you actually won't get arrested for walking down the street because you actually will have public use, or you'll actually be able to have a job and use it and not get fired, or you won't be kicked off the transplant list, or you won't have your kids taken away for using it away from the kids, that kind of thing. Can it be done?
It can be. I don't know.
You've seen it done in other states. It's a matter of political will.
Yeah. It's actually interesting to me. And I was just that, I actually have always watched the Florida market, but I wasn't thinking of it too much in terms of like the culture of the state itself. And now that I'm here, I'm like, wow, you guys are, a lot of hooligan. There's just all this, like, I want freedom. I want to do this. Basically, like the actual Wild West. And I'm like, hold on. To stand by this claim that you want freedom for all these other things, but then freedom in these other areas, it's like, oh, no, not there. You can't have like a plant that grows out of the ground. That's crazy.
Or be a woman and make your own healthcare decisions.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's like a confusion here. The ones that think they're so freedom oriented because it's America and we're free here and we get to do what we want, except not these specific things. And so it's like, it's kooky to me. It's so interesting.
Smoking weed and premarital sex are no-nos to the freedom people in Florida. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's this element of, I just get this sense that whoever whatever your culture and community is, you must not trust it at all and think it's incredibly weak if you're so scared that something being allowed would take over everything that you believe in. Like, you have nothing to stand on then if your one thing you believe in has no integrity and couldn't withstand other people doing something. That's all very interesting to me as well.
You hear that, Ronnie D? Juliana just called you a coward.
100%.
Not directly. Well, no, well, now she's saying directly. She co-signing that shit. Thank you.
We
Absolutely.
have the most corrupt politicians. Like, it is it is so strange.
Carlos, we went to school here, right? So, like,
Yeah.
most people don't even realize university presidentships are where Republican senators go to retire in Florida. Like, after you're done fucking up the legislature for a decade, you get the upgrade to go fucking up one of our major universities, and it's sad.
Yeah.
But think about how many Republican senators in Florida have become university presidents. UF, FSU, Florida Polytechnic. We can run them down.
And
Wow.
there, you know, the whole idea of leaving the cannabis industry in the legislators' hands is so fucking scary to me.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about how long this has been going on this entire show. I mean, the 2014 we passed the CBD laws, and we haven't given out a license yet. That's 10 years of shitty license making under medical marijuana.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see anything happen in the legislature other than maybe a THC cap for adult use.
Here's
know?
the fucked up part, Carlos. Like,
Yeah.
Amendment 3 actually does have a language window. It's not a loophole. It's a window that allows the legislature to license other businesses. So Amendment 3 actually put in the legislative vehicle through the language to break up vertical integration. It gives the legislature that option.
Yeah. That would
But the legislature has to have the cojones.
I
to do
cannot
it.
see any universe where the legislator will take that option. I cannot see any universe where that will happen. And you know, like we get called out a lot for pushing people to be liberal or Democrat or whatever. But I mean, at this point, maybe we should just take that whole stance and tell people to be Democrat when you've got the Republican Party of Florida straight up saying, no, we don't want this. This is going to be horrible for our state. Like,
And then you got the Democrats
no on
actually.
marijuana stance.
Carlos, our chapter has been invited to multiple Democratic conventions, functions, and local groups to educate their members. And I got to say, Kelly, our director of Veteran and Patient Affairs, has done a great job. She spoke at the Democratic Veteran Caucus's Florida State Convention last month. She spoke at the Democratic Women's Club of Port St. Lucie. She's speaking to the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Tampa Bay at the end of next month. And we are doing our best to educate the community as to what Amendment 3 is, warts and all, you know, and that's what we need people to make educated voter decisions. But again, when it comes down to it, Florida, as you said, has this culture behind its politics. And if we can even make progress under that culture, I mean, that's what Amendment 3 is. It is probably it's like Republicans are babies, right, in a high chair. And here we are trying to spoon feed them.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, open the mouth. Here comes the airplanes. And that's essentially what Amendment 3 is. It is entertaining these fucking babies to get them to swallow freedom, you know, and it's you can only get a little bit because they're not going to eat the whole thing. The spoon's this fucking big anyways. And that's essentially what we're getting. It's like, but you know, my thing is this. Voting no, like that's what you got for perspective. Like, we can't throw tantrums too because we're trying to feed a fucking tantruming baby in our politicians with this watered down fucking amendment.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta ask you, Keno, if you think Florida Republican legislators are babies, right? What do you call somebody like Daryl Roussan?
Look, I give Daryl a lot of shit because he's one of ours. You know, like as in, I am a registered member of the Florida Democratic Party. I'm an unabashed DNC delegate. I was a delegate in 2012. I was a delegate in 2020. I ran for delegate this year. You know, look, I totally reserve the right to criticize my own party's politicians, and I get a lot of shit for it from Democratic leaders. But the truth is that at this day and age, with what we know and how long things have been in operation and the level of education, if you're anti-cannabis at this point, you're either corrupt or you're just a dickhead. You know, and Daryl has at least taken baby steps. You know, he's the same guy that the reason we can't say bong in a head shop, but at least when we need him to take a vote to be pro-cannabis on something, he inches it as long as it, like, for example, he tried to open it up to where everybody who applied for a black farmer's license could get a second chance to cure their application. You got to give the man some respect for that, some kudos for that. But I still think it was a dick move of him to outlaw the word bong in a head shop in Florida. like you know, and I'm going to continue to give him shit about it just because until he changes it. Just like Joe Biden. Joe Biden was a drug warrior in the 90s. And let's talk about it because this election is important. I want people to understand that Joe Biden is the first president to actually talk about weed in the State of a Union address and not talk about it in a way where we're going to lock all you fucking potheads up like Nixon did, right? That's historic. You got a vice president who used to be a pothead, but at the same time built a career locking up people as a prosecutor, having people at the White House get pardons and be able to clear their name and their records. That's historic. But again, we're talking about babies and politicians. You're only going to get incremental change. You're only going to eat so much freedom at one time. And when you look across the aisle of what the alternative is, Donald Trump saying he wants to put drug dealers to the death penalty. So all you black market dealers out there who are talking shit and is saying about freedom and Trump 24 and all of that, like, think about for a second the dichotomy between the two choices. And then the fucked up part is that the race is tied right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. God bless Duterte, where he got all of his good ideas from. But I know Nikki Fried is going to be coming on in the next couple of weeks to discuss this upcoming election. So we will be getting more into the Democrat versus Republican thing. I can tell you, after this last week where they had the Republican convention and they had the leadership blue, the Republicans came out saying, we are definitely want you all to say no to abortion rights and definitely say no to adult use. And the words that the Democrats came out with was say, when you get to the polls, say no, no, yes, yes, no, no. Well, that's dumbing it down a little bit too much because people are not going to know what the hell they're even voting for. If they get the rhyme wrong, this could be disastrous.
Yeah.
Gary, Democrats suck at messaging.
Oh God, that's so true.
Look, I was laughing at one of the local comedians in the DMV. Lauren, can't forget her last name, but Cory Booker, who recently is a co-sponsor of the federal legislation to legalize weed that the Democratic Senate leadership rolled out, also said some tone deaf shit around the protests that are going on college campuses. Hillary Clinton said some tone deaf shit this week, and it seems like Democratic leaders build something with their hands and then destroy it with their feet, like a child at a sandcastle, on the beach. And that's really what it is. It's a shit show, and no one's happy. That's why I find it interesting that this subject of cannabis does bring a swath of so many people from across the political spectrum together. I mean, we talk so much shit to each other on our pages because this person's Democrat, this person's Republican, this one's a libertarian, this one's a communist, this one's an anarchist, this one's a socialist, this one's an atheist, this one's a devout Christian, this one's an Orthodox Jew, and all these people are coming together, arguing, talking shit. But look, in the grand scheme of things, the one thing that is bringing us together is this herb, and this is and all we want is to be able to utilize this freely without harassment, without losing money, without losing freedom, and that's always been where we're at. And Normal's existed for 50 years trying to get that mission accomplished. We said we have a founder who's 80 years old, still on our board, still trying to get shit done. And that's and if you look at how we're halfway there, half of the country has adult use. It's not perfect, but we're really living in exciting times. Like, we live in the most exciting time to live in. We're not in the future. We're not in the past. Right here in the present, right now, We're
Yeah.
fucking living it. We're making it happen. We're building change. We're the change makers. This generation, all of us together, millennials, boomers, Xers, and Zoomers. Like we are all the voting populace. We're the electric now. It's up to us to make it happen. And there is, just like a baby that has shit itself, you change the diapers regularly. We got to change politicians. In Florida this year, we got one shit bag of a diaper that has been not changed in so long, and that is Rick Scott as our United States Senator. Okay, the same guy who's a Navy vet who won't support veterans getting access to cannabis. All right, the same guy, who will take a picture with a fucking dog for the campaign and then take that dog back to the pound. All right, after the Photoshop's done.
Christ.
And anytime you email him or anything about, legalize it or take this action, he's not there. This is the same guy that's pled the fifth more times than a goddamn Dave Chappelle character. And he's on the ballot in addition to Amendment 3. And that's why my hopes were, and this really is why the Republican Party of Florida came out against Amendment 3. They can talk all that shit they want about it, but they take True Leaf money just like anyone else. Matter of fact, they take a lot of fucking True Leaf money,
Right.
So, and a lot of Cure Leaf money. And so let's be clear. They don't want increased turnout by people who don't typically vote, who have the opportunity to vote for weed, who have the opportunity, who may care about a woman's reproductive rights to go out and vote for that. And that increased turnout could cost them a U.S. Senate seat. And here's the clear thing. There is no way we can legalize weed at the congressional level with a split House and without 60 votes to close debate on the legalization bills. We've passed legalization through the MORE Act, through the House. We're not going to get it through the Senate without 60 votes. And one of those votes is got to be Rick Scott getting the fuck out of there, because he will never vote to close the debate on the legalization bill. And we have a legalization bill from the Senate Democratic leadership right now that's been introduced. It's the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act. Is it perfect? I mean, no. It's got tax rates in it. It's got all kinds. It's got drawbacks. But the point is that for almost a century now, we've had cannabis prohibition in this country in one form or another.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity right now in the present to actually make a difference. This election year, they say it, and it's always such bullshit. Oh, this is the most historic one of your life. This one actually is. This election year will determine cannabis policy over the next, 5 to 10 years and how long it takes. Is it going to take us 5 more years to get it right, or is it going to take us a whole nother decade? And this is going to be a flashpoint. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. If we legalized weed, if we gave the Democrats majorities and control of both houses and a lame duck president who's old enough for us to probably sign whatever legislation we put in front of him because, he just want to go take a nap, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. I think most people would be cool with that. It's like, okay, Joe, 4 more years for legal weed. I could probably tolerate that. It's not perfect, but fuck, and it's ironic. But if anybody should legalize weed, it should be the one dickhead that gave people 3 strike laws, Yeah. Like pay for your penance as a politician.
I see we got Jason Beck commenting on us right now. I think that Juliana might know him over in the Vegas area. He's somewhat on the far right side. We did have Nancy Mace on, and we did have her in conversation for a good hour. And she made a lot of sense in regards to her bill is concerned. The only problem is the other 99% of the things that she says are batshit insane. So
you're like, she got one cool thing.
Kind of thing.
No, and let's talk about the States Act, right? Like the States Act is not going to get through, is not going to get through the House the way it is. It's a good bill in the sense that it will legalize weed, but her own party chairs in the judiciary and in all the committees that the bill needs to go through, her own party's in control of, and they're not going to give it a hearing. So, like, you talked all that shit about we can't stand another 4 years of Biden. We can't stand another 4 years of the Republicans holding up legalization in Congress.
Yeah. Can I, before I forget to do this, ask you a question about that Curaleaf and Trulieve money going to the Republican Party?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is me. Okay, so those 22 licenses have not been announced, and I believe if I were Trulieve or Curaleaf, I would really love that situation because it reduces the number of my competitors getting started before adult use gets started. Do you think that's part of what they've been lobbying for? Is like, cool, that's a thing. Don't release them. Like, hold them back. Don't release them. Give us a chance because to not have that time to start in the medical market and then flip to adult use will be, I mean, that is like steamrolling people because the adult use market in Florida is going to be so huge because there's a lot of people. And so to be 100 and something stores behind the largest competitor, but still even 20, 30 stores behind, the furthest back person, and trying to compete and build your business with just an onslaught of consumers, that is an interesting strategy for setting up your potential new competitors. So I've been wondering about that. I was talking to my boyfriend about it this morning, and he's like,
Yes.
I'm with you.
If you ask it in the form of a question, it prevents
Yes.
anybody from being sued. So thank
Okay.
you. Thank
So
you.
do you think
And my answer would be, I do not know. What I do know is that whatever is said behind whatever access you get, when you write a check to a politician, typically they'll take a closed door meeting with you. And what is said behind those closed doors, no one knows but the politician and the lobbyists, right? I will say this: there is if that is the case, that would point to a pattern of corruption. Because what we do know is that the CEO of Trulieve's husband, hetero life mate, whatever you want to call him, did go to prison for essentially a scheme at the local level in Tallahassee, Florida, to work with Democratic city commissioners. So I'm going to give the Democrats shit right now, to essentially allow them to corner the market through, passing moratoriums on additional locations opening up. And just their locations get grandfathered in, right? That was the whole thing that he went to jail for, and even some Democratic commissioners went to jail for, and even Andrew Gillum got implicated in because he was mayor at the time and he was running for governor. And so that's some more shit that got us Ron DeSantis because the Democrats ran a candidate who he had some baggage, and so I mean shit. Who knows? My thing is this: when you're big enough like that, you start to make decisions. What the Japanese say, business is war. And so all of our other competition must be stomped out, and that is the fight that we've had in Florida. That's the fight that we're seeing in Missouri. It's the fight that had happened in Maryland, that happened in Arizona, Virginia. Is you have people like Carlos who run hemp businesses, sell hemp-derived cannabinoids, and you have Trulieve spending lobbying dollars and writing public policy. We've seen the boilerplates, they're circulating across the internet, of them trying to stamp out competition from hemp businesses. And that's why Florida's hemp industry really is at the mercy of Ron DeSantis' signature right now on a bill. If Ron DeSantis signs this bill, the quality of products that Carlos can carry starting October 1st is going to change drastically. And Carlos, you've already said that the Department of Agriculture has been in your shop pulling shit off the shelves when they want. So tell us a little bit tell Juliana and the folks listening for the first time what is happening between the hemp industry and the medical marijuana industry in Florida.
I was at a distributor on Tuesday, and I counted 6 inspectors there, and they were just like straight up pulling shit off the shelf, throwing them in boxes, right? Big, like they have like rolls of like red tape now, like actual like stop sale stickers that are in these like huge rolls that they can just peel off the sticker, put it on a cardboard box, fill it out, and then throw the box to the side.
So they take your shit. They don't even let you like take it home or nothing.
They're well, they box it up, they tape it up.
Do they buy it from you?
No. They tell you to throw it in a corner.
Wow.
and hold on to it. So I mean, right now, so I mean, I could call out the distributor. Southern Wholesale right now is sitting on a lot of inventory
Wow.
that I'm not sure specifically why they were there pulling this specific inventory. I'm pretty sure it's THCA.
Yeah.
But they're sitting on huge boxes of inventory. And traditionally, like with a stop sale, there are different ways that you can release the stop sale. And they've allowed me in the past to send product back to the manufacturer when I've had stop sales placed. They've forced me to throw away product before. But now with Delta 9 and TACA, their policy is actually law enforcement has to come and pick it up. So
Whoa.
I have 3/4 of a pound of THCA flower in the back there that has a stop sale tickets on it. And it's had it for a month on there, and we're just waiting for law enforcement to drop by and say, hey, we want that THCA flower, and we give it to them, and supposedly they'll be on their way. My
I wonder what happens in the chain of custody once the cops
Yeah.
come get it. Like, are they gonna use it in after school specials? Kid, this is THCA flower.
Hey, what you could do is
Because
you could
when I was in 7th grade, we had a drug day where the SRO pulled out a briefcase full of baggies of different drugs, and I was like, "Who is this guy? Is he the plug or is he a school cop?" Like, well, this is weird. And then he tells you almost damn near where you can get it. Go see Martinez over in 7th period. Around the corner. Like it's crazy. That was the education millennials got on drugs in Hillsborough County schools.
I really hope the way that they handle this is that there's just like a big barrel in the back of the police station, and they just toss everything in and light on
Well,
fire.
you could send it to Kevin Sabet. I can give you his address.
Oh my goodness.
But that's essentially what's going on. So for a while, the Department of Agriculture.
Gary, we got Kevin's address for real because you need to email him or mail him that Ass Hat of the Week award that he won for like 2 weeks in a row.
That's right. Once again, Kevin Sabet gets the Ass Hat of the Week award.
Juliana, do you know who Kevin Sabet is?
Not at all.
So he was a drug czar under the Bush and Obama administrations. He's a professor at the University of Florida. He runs a group called Smart Approaches to Marijuana, which is essentially an anti-legalization group. He makes it seem like they're a responsible legalization group, but nah, he's against legalizing it in every fucking state. And he was debating our National Deputy Director, Paul Armentano, on C-SPAN about Amendment 3 the other day and about federal legalization and such. And, it's just, he even said that if he wants to sue to prevent the government from rescheduling from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. And it's like, we've been fighting this shit. Since 1970s on the Controlled Substances Act, Schedule 1. We got the DEA in the 80s, and I say we, I mean normal, to admit their own judge say it shouldn't be Schedule 1. It's a natural plant. It has medicinal properties. Now the DEA under the Biden administration finally caves and say cannabis has medicinal properties. It should be Schedule 3. No, I don't agree with Schedule 3. I don't think that ketamine and steroids and weed are on the same level. I think weed is an agricultural product, like they said in the Minnesota Constitution. It should be regulated like such, so we should deschedule it. But this is historic progress. This is the DEA for the first time saying weed has medicinal value. That should not be lost on anybody. But what are your thoughts about Schedule 3? Do you think, for some people, they think it's going to change everything. All I think is it's not going to change anything between the current state disconnect and federal law disconnect. But I do think it will, like you said earlier, change the culture a little bit in this country. And I just wanted to get some more insight from you on what Schedule 3 might mean.
So I don't know that I can see the future at all, how it plays out. I know in my world, the largest benefit would be 280E not being a problem anymore, which that honestly though is really impactful, not just for large corporations, but for people trying to survive as small businesses in the industry where they are allowed to do that. Right now, like I've had multiple people come to me to work with Cann Strategy, and I'm like, I just had one in South Dakota, and I was like, don't do this. Like, you do not have the money to do this. It will bankrupt you. And a large part of that is simply 280E. Like, the tax burden is unreal, and you just don't have those benefits as usual business does. And so 280 is the thing I'm looking forward to most. It also might change just how scary cannabis seems to people. I totally agree with you. This is just a plant. The amount of effort that has had to be put into people fighting for decades for this plant to be able to exist is like, sometimes I'm just like, this is Looney Tunes. Like, this. Just let it grow, let it be business. It'll be fine. But yeah, 280 is what I'm looking forward to most. Outside of that, I'm not sure. We see things all the time presented and then it goes sideways. So
Well,
Remember,
the thing about it, the IRS can't even issue any guidance around 280. They can't even start writing a guidebook for folks, if there is going to be any changes
yeah.
until the rescheduling process is done with the DEA and such. And
How
so,
long does that take usually?
I mean, hell, we're here's the thing: if there's a change in the administration, I can tell you we go back to zero. There'll be a new DEA head. There'll be new drug czars. There'll be new drug policy from a new Trump administration. So yeah, I mean, folks could talk all the shit they want and say that hey, we're worse under Biden than we were Trump. But I mean, if folks want to go down that road, this ain't really the show I've always wanted to go down that road. But we can do that in a future episode. We're coming to the end of this one. But I mean, I think that there is definitely right now a lot of progress that is pending. That if there is an administration change, if there's a shift politically in this country, I think a lot of the progress we've seen politically is going to go to the wayside, and it's going to take 4 to 6 years for political winds to change again. But that's always been the nature of this country. In the late 70s, people thought, Jimmy Carter, his son smokes weed in the White House with Willie Nelson, we're going to legalize it. I remember Tommy Chong saying that shit in movies he was making in the late 70s. And now Tommy is an 80-some-year-old grandfather, who is closer to Jesus than he is, his time in those movies. And I think that's a lot to be said about the incremental progress in this country. It's like, because of our political winds shifting, that's all we really get is incremental progress. And that's why I'm of the opinion, take the opportunities when they get in front of you. And that's really what, for me, has me choosing to vote for Amendment 3. Like, that's my reasoning. Yeah. This is a flashpoint we may not get again.
And you can probably tell we can talk all day, which we often have. But we got to put a pin on this right now because it's Mother's Day, and my wife is turning on REM at full blast, which means it's time to close down the show.
She's like, "Let's go."
Happy Mother's Day, Monique. We miss you. So, and a happy Mother's Day to your mom as well, Carlos. And Mom, I know you're not listening. You're at work right now, but happy Mother's Day to my mom. Juliana, you want to say happy Mother's Day to your peoples?
Yeah.
If the entrepreneur market actually opens up in this state and people are wanting to get into it, where can they get a hold of you?
Where? At cannstrategy.com at the moment. And also, I love LinkedIn. So just Juliana Whitney on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's really where. Can I just tell you one thing? And I don't mean to totally make this a plug, but I really want people to know this.
But
okay. So, you can look at the Cure Leaves, True Leaves, GTIs, whatever. They all have very big similarities, right? Obviously, I'm biased with Planet for a multitude of reasons. But one thing people don't know is the heart is this guy, Chris Wren. And Chris Wren is from the legacy market. He's still there. He still makes all the decisions product-based. And he is a consumer. And he is the heart and soul of that business, partnered with corporate people for money reasons. But I just had to make that differentiation just for the world. I'm like, please don't think that they're truly, please God, it's not the same thing.
Juliana, you want to go a long way? Get them on the show. We could put them in the rotation. We could smoke a blunt with them, and people can see that because that's what we want. We've actually invited other folks. I mean, we had someone from Green Dragon on previously, so yeah, please invite them to come down, and we'd love to smoke them out.
It's a big mistake to think that just because a company is a corporation or a large company that it it cannot be socially responsible. We are screwed here because I mean, many of the companies that have started in our industry are not very socially
Yeah.
responsible.
Not at all.
So yeah, I mean, it would be good to see, there's a lot of companies bursting out on the scenes that it's actually going to be exciting to see what's going to happen when they open up, when they start serving patients, things
Yeah.
like that.
Have
So
y'all seen that new show on Hulu, High Hopes? It's about
yeah,
a dispensary.
I
And
like
like they're having their own internal conflict because they're going corporate, and they're like, you can't smoke at work, you can't be high. And the
Yeah.
bartender's like, what the fuck do you mean I can't
Yeah.
be high at work?
that show is weird to me because like they start off and they're like, yeah, you can't get high at work, you can't get high at work, and then like 2 minutes later into the show they're like, okay, we're gonna have a meeting where we all smoke weed and judge how this weed gets us high.
this is our testing. These are our samples.
So I mean, I don't know, that show is interesting. I think it could be a lot better. I think there's some stereotypes in there.
I mean,
Carlos, I think Chillum needs its own show. Your cast of
needs its
characters
own
is
show.
way more interesting.
We got some cool characters here, Chillum.
yeah.
But yeah, I just want to make a one announcement before we actually close the show. I think, and I'm happy you're here to see this, Juliana. But
Okay.
I want to make a confession to you and to Gary and Cano. I am no longer an atheist.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
Yeah,
That's a big
Yeah.
deal.
I am now worshiping marijuana and mushrooms.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's spirit in that.
Thank you.
I
That's
dig it. I
that's
dig it.
all
I
I
dig
got.
it. Very, very George Carlin-esque. I dig that. I dig
And
that
it's better than
philosophy.
your Pastafarian phase, which was good too.
George Carlin always said, worship something that you can see. He said he worships the sun. I said, Carlos, weed and mushrooms are that important to you. By all means, talk to him, connect,
Yeah.
get that DMT flowing through the brain, however you can do it. So,
Okay.
well, look, team, as we close out again, we are Suncoast Normal, bringing you the rotation each and every Sunday at 11 o'clock. We have amazing guests. Juliana, thank you for coming on board. Best of luck with Planet 13 in Florida. We're looking forward to a lot of brand changes in this state in the coming years. That's one thing Florida has consistently, the consumers have thrived for, is someone to give them alternatives to these Walmart and Targets of weed that we have through these MSOs. And people really want, it's like McDonald's and Burger King. Sometimes you want Five Guys. You don't mind paying $10 for a burger if that burger's fucking satisfying. And that's a really what I think consumers in Florida have been looking for a long time. And so I'm interested to see these other multi-state operators from other states, because we've only had, one from this state or ones that, have been very, very corporatized from Cali come out. To actually bring some quality to it. So I'm pretty excited to work together in the future. By all means, we'd love to have you back on the show to talk more. But again, folks, we can't do this without you, the listeners, without you, our members. So visit suncoastnormal.org, sign up for a 1-year membership. Everything we do in this organization goes back into our education and advocacy efforts. And if you want to know more about what we're trying to get done, this is election season. We're going to be having a lot of candidates coming up on the show over the summer. We're going to be sending out our candidate questionnaire soon. So we're going to be able to really tell you who are the people who are going to move public policy Florida in the state of Florida. We sending these out to everybody, whether Republican, Democrat. If you're on the ballot and you're going to be in the general election on November, we want to hear from you. We want to know exactly where you stand when it comes to legalizing it and protecting the civil rights of cannabis users. And to all of our friends out there listening and watching, let's get on some collabs too. I'd love to have some more folks come on the show. I'd love to be on other shows. We got a lot of education to do in this state. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of ignorance. There's also a lot of anger. And so as advocates, we need to be aware and hear people out too. One of the things I'm starting to realize is that you will never convince someone to change a political opinion on social media. It does not matter how many times all you're going to do is each other, yell at each other. Your caps are going to get big. No one has ever done that. But what you can do is be a human being, pull up a blunt, smoke with your friends, and just, I love the Persian method of things. Like, do something sober, come to a conclusion, and then get high. And if you come to the same conclusion, it's probably the right decision. So I think that's a good method to leave us on today. But Gary, you got any closing thoughts or words for folks?
Yeah, Juliana, if you can pass the message on, tell Larry to come on the show for us so we can get
Larry? Okay. I mean, listen, guys.
What
I,
a response
I
is that?
Larry
Larry? Oh,
no,
my.
Larry's a good time. So Larry he's so fun. I mean, he's the most fun. He's like, planet is a blast. Let's do cool things. Like he's the like, let's do wacky things. Like he's a good time. So I will, I'll mention it. I don't I'm not his PR
I've
rep.
been trying for
but
some time now, and
yeah, they're busy guys for sure. They've got a lot going on.
Florida
But
wants to know what Plant 13 is going to look like here.
here, do you
We've
really
all gone to Vegas and done that thing. We
okay?
want
So
to know where there's be giant floating balls going down Universal Avenue.
yeah, so that's a mega store. That's what they call that. That is not the model that will be moving forward in Florida. That I can tell you. It's going to be a lot of people also don't know this, but Planet 13, its seed is actually a company called Medizin in Las Vegas, and that was their neighborhood store. Planet 13 was the second, and Medizin model will be more like what it is in Florida.
I've had Medizin. It's a good brand.
Oh,
Yeah, I've had
Chris is
Medizin.
behind it. Chris, it's his. I mean, yeah, and he named a strain after his daughter, which I think is so cute.
Oh,
Yeah, I love it. But that's what it'll be like here. It'll be much more approachable. Like, there's not going to be mega stores.
yeah, I'm excited. VitaCann was every time I've been to a VitaCann, it's been pretty disappointing. So
They're excited too. I've talked to a lot of the employees. They're like,
Yeah.
"This is going to be great. We're
Yeah.
really stoked for that." Yeah.
Yeah, I can see
Hey,
that.
Carlos, I can't see your face because you got to become a member QR code. Oh, there you go.
All right,
Exciting.
you guys, happy Mother's Day.
Happy
Thank
Mother's Day to everyone.
Happy Mother's Day.
So Gary, we got some guests coming on next week. I don't know.
Next week we got
tease
Bree
them out.
Wallace, who's running for 66.
Okay, so we got some politicians coming on next week. All right. So viewers, bring your questions next week.